Hello everyone. Hope you are taking good care of yourself. Welcome to virtual class. I am Miss Jahida, your English teacher, here with another topic, that is second poem. The topic is Africa. This poem is composed by David Diop. Let's have a look on the introductory part of the poet. David Mandesi Diop, that is from 1927 to 1960, was a revolutionary African poet born in France to parents of West African descent. So he was a African poet. He was born in France and his parents were from western part of Africa. He lived in France through his childhood and visited Africa only in 1950s children. Means he spent his life in France and his childhood actually, and later he visited Africa in 1950s. His poems highlighted the problems of Africa brought about by colonialism and gave a message to Africans to bring about change and freedom. A question may arise here: a poet who has highlighted the problems of Africa. And what were the problems faced by Africans? It was colonialism, children. Through his writing, he gave a message to Africans that how they brought a change, how they became free. It's actually a message, a great message given to the Africans, and you can consider it as a tribute also. He's giving a tribute to Africans, how they struggled, how they overcame colonialism. Let me clear what is this colonialism. It was the power which was linked with the spread of Western European states all over the world. During the time of colonization, an economic depression was occurring in Europe and other powerful countries such as Germany, France, and Great Britain. And these countries were losing money actually, children. So the Europeans started colonialism. And what was the reason to start colonialism? It was the economic status. To improve the economic status, the European countries started colonialism. And this began in the 15th century when Spanish and Portuguese they started to explore the America. They from the coasts of Africa, the Middle East, India, and East Asia. Not only they explored America, they also explored the coasts of Africa, the Middle East, even the India also, and East Asia. So, as Europeans moved beyond exploration and into colonization of the Americas, they brought changes in every aspect. Africans were exported to those colonies as slaves. And how the Africans suffered, a question may arise here. The Africans were exported to those colonization, the land which were formed as a colonialism. So, of course, the England was more successful in forming colonization that time. The main purpose was to develop economic condition. Rather than this, they not intended to develop the culture children. So, Africans were forced to work in the colonial plantations and industries. They were tortured, they were suppressed, and even they were exploited. Then some harsh rules were made to follow by Africans, but Africans refused and then started a revolt. Many great personalities like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther, and Abraham Lincoln supported the revolt. The purpose of the revolt was to free Africa. I hope you have understood what is colonialism. So, there is a big history about this freedom children, how the Africans struggled, how we are having a freedom movement. You know how when a revolt started in our country, the revolt was started in 1857 and it was started by Mangal Pandey. And even our country was under British, under the control of British. And many Indians, we people, we all Indians struggled a lot. And the freedom fighters were able to free the country from Britishers. There were some movements carried on. Then later in finally in 1947, our India got freedom, children. Same way, even Africa is also having a history. How the people suffered, how they strived, how they got suppressed by because of this colonialism. That is what the suffering and the exploitation which was done on Africans, it is expressed in this poem. He was known for his involvement in the negritude movement in France, a movement started by black writers and artists protesting against French colonialism and its effects on African culture and values. So here David Diop was also a part of negritude movement, and this negritude movement had started in France, and it was started by black writers and even artists also. They were protesting against the French colonialism, children, and in and they were protesting the effects of African culture. This French colonialism was affecting the culture and values of African. So the writers and the artists, they collaborated, they started to write, they started to provoke the African peoples to join the protest. That's what here the negritude movement is explained. His views and feelings were published in Presence Africaine and in his book of poems Corps de Pilon, which was published in 1956. Diop died at the age of 33 in a plane crash. Such a great writer, where we can see in his writings, he has always brought an essence of freedom. He has always brought an essence of the feelings of the Africans. Let's read and find out, children, what all things he has explained in the poem. There is a warm up activity here. Look at the following personalities. What do you think they are known for? Discuss their contribution to the world and humanity with your friends in groups. I really miss your presence here. Why? Because for this warm up activity, I wish that you have been in front of me sitting. That would be very easy for me to explain, children. But anyhow, look at these pictures. As I said, the revolt was started by Africans when the harsh laws were made to follow. So the great personalities like Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther, and Abraham Lincoln joined the revolt. Here in the first picture, it is the picture of Abraham Lincoln. Who is Abraham Lincoln? Yes, the first personality is Abraham Lincoln, the president of USA. He was able to abolish the system of slavery in USA. He was able to stop the civil war which had divided the country on this matter. Then he quoted the democracy as the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. The second personality is Nelson Mandela, who struggled for the eradication of apartheid in South Africa. He was imprisoned for many years, children, nearly for 27 years, but finally was successful in eradicating that. He was the president of the country for about 5 years, that is from 1994 to June 1999. Then he passed away in December 2013. Let's see what the poem is about. The poem is a reminiscence of Africa, a land about which the poet heard from his grandmother's song. He paints a vivid picture of the history of European colonialism in Africa and the strength of African people. Reminiscence means a story told about the past event, remembered by the narrator. So, poem is the story told of the story told of the past event of Africa children. A land, about the land from whom he had heard in grandmother's song. Maybe his grandmother was singing and she was mentioning the suffering of the Africans in her songs. So, through her songs only, the poet came to know about the land, about the Africans. So, he tried his level best to paint, to bring the different picture of history. And he tried his level best to picturize the European colonialism also. And he tried to picturize the strength of the African people here. So, here in this poem, he describes the travails and toils of the African people who have undergone during colonialism. So they withstood with British colonialism and became free. It was just like a story told, a freedom story told children. How we are having a freedom story, same way, even Africans are also having a story of freedom. How they strived, how they uh, united, and how they fought with them, how they withstood with the colonialism, how they raised their voice, how they protested. This is what. Here is the poem. Africa, my Africa, Africa of proud warriors in ancestral savannas, Africa of whom my grandmother sings, on the banks of distant river, I have never known you. The poet addresses Africa as a nation. Here he refers the nation has struggled throughout for respect, for freedom. The people, the African people, they were toiled as slaves in the fields. They were forced to work as slaves in factories, in industries. Then they have been slaves for generations. They were depressed, they were demoralized under the weight of humiliation. So he feels sorry for those all black people, how they suffered. So he tells here, we can see Africa, my Africa, he says. Africa, proud warriors. So the poet continues to say that he has never known Africa. But despite of the distance, he cannot deny how much it is a part of him. So here he tells that the blood which flows in his veins is from African descent. It is there in the next children. On the banks of the distant river, I have never known you, he says. The land, the country, which he came to know from his grandmother's songs, he missed it a lot. He has never spent his childhood there. Where he was brought up in France. But still he misses it. He tells that he missed the uh, the days which he missed, the days he not spent in that land, and he understands the pain, he understands the suffering which the African people have gone through. So he says, I have never known you on the banks of distant river. I know I'm proud that from I'm a part of Africa. I'm proud that I am a part of proud warriors. The land from which from grandmother's songs I came to know, but I never spent the days in that country. But still I miss the land. I know how you have suffered, how you came through all the obstacles. Let's see, children, what he says in the next paragraph. But your blood flows in my veins, your beautiful black blood that irrigates the fields, the blood of your sweat, the sweat of your work. The phrase beautiful black blood which flows in his veins describes his African descent and shows how much Africa is a part of him and how much he loves his country and its people. So, the next verses are angry and accusatory, children. As he stresses that it is blood and sweat of his people which is irrigating the fields of the benefit of other people. Here he is pointing a finger at the colonialists who exploited the black people and used them as slaves to profit from their hard labor. So he says here, your beautiful black blood that irrigates the fields, the blood of your sweat, the sweat of your work. The verses are angry and accusatory. So he says, he points out the colonialists who exploited, who used the Africans as slaves to profit their lands. The work of your slavery, the slavery of your children. Africa, tell me, Africa, is this you, this back that is bent? Is this you, this back that is bent, this back that breaks under the weight of humiliation, this back trembling with red scares? Red scares refer to the whiplashes, children, to the whiplashes where it was used to beat the slaves. You know, the hunters use it. You know, what is whip, children? The hunters use it. We call it as chabuk. So the slaves were getting whiplashes from their masters, and it was a kind of humiliation. And so the red scars refers to the humiliation suffered by the Africans in the hands of colonialists. Though here the poet hasn't lived in Africa, he realizes that the blacks are treated inhumanly and made to work in the fields, spilling their sweat and blood. They were whipped and their backs were red with whiplashes. They were bogged down by the humiliation. Though he is away from his motherland, the pain of his countrymen and the unbearable pain, he feels the pain of those African people, how they got humiliated, how they got exploited, and how they were made to get punishment. So it tells us here, the work of your slavery, the slavery of your children. Africa, tell me, Africa, is this you, this back that is bent? Means, even after getting this much of punishment, even after getting this much of harassment, the Africa is still not losing its hope. He tells here that, is this you that is bent? But now what happens, children? Even after getting so much of harassment, so much of torture, we can see how the hopes were kept, how the Africa was. and how it came through, how it withstood. Finally, it became free. So he tells here, this back that breaks under the weight of humiliation, this back trembling with scares, and yes, saying yes to the whip under a midday sun, but a grave voice answers me. Impet- Impetuous sun, that tree young and strong, the tree there, in splendid loneliness amidst white and faded flowers. The trembling back means the back that is bent. It was made to bend actually, and with the red scars. It is unforgettable, children. The experience which was unforgettable, and even the experience of Holocaust also. The people, the people of Germany, how they suffered in World War II, where Hitler made them to get suffer. Hitler was not liking Jewish people, and he used to kill them. Same way, Germany is also having a history about this Holocaust. Africa is also having a history about this. So even after having all these kinds of situations, difficult situations, it is the hope, it is the wish, the dream which comes true through the work of the people. The people started to revolt, the people started to raise voice. Because of their revolt only, because of their protest only, today we can say Africa is free. So he says he just recollects the days when in the midday sun the African slaves were brought in the ground and they were made to get punishment by the whip. They were getting whip lashes. Now, when they are not present today, they are dead. They are silently sleeping in their graves. The voice comes from their graves. The voice answers me, he says here. To whom it is answering, children? It is answering to poet. And what it is answering? He says that impetuous sun, the tree young and strong, that tree there in splendid loneliness amidst white and faded flowers. Means the voice which comes from the grave, it tells that there is a tree. It's a line shows that the pride of the poet. And the poet has what kind of pride he has towards his country. Despite of repeatedly humiliated, the African tried a lot to stand and assert their independence proudly. So it was a proud moment for his country and how they asserted independence. So here the voice comes from it is just imaginary thing, children. The poet tells here that a voice comes from the grave, and he tells that even though from even though we suffered from humiliation, we suffered a lot because of punishments, because of suppress, because we got suppressed. uh, we can see now a tree is standing. The tree is young and strong, and with the white and faded flowers, he says. Not the flowers are not disappearing. The white flowers have come. White means it is a mark of peace. How we see that during independence the white doves are made to fly. It is a mark of peace, children. So white it is referred here, and faded flowers never get disappeared. And there is splendid loneliness means the people, the African people miss those people who died for this freedom. Even how we miss our freedom fighters, children, today. We miss them, or we miss them a lot or not. They struggled a lot, they suffered a lot, they had been imprisoned many times. So here it is a kind of tribute a poet gives. to all the people who lost their lives for this purpose. What was the purpose? To get freedom. But still, the Africa is standing strong. It is alone. It is still young today. So it is referred to a tree here. That is Africa, your Africa, that grows again patiently, obstinately, and its fruit gradually acquires the bitter taste of liberty. See, patiently, obstinately means stubbornly. Africa, your Africa, he says. My country, it was a sense of pride he brings here. It was the patience what the people were having at that time. Even today, how patiently the people are living, the Africa is having, and how stubborn it has become now. It is actually a fruit which has got from the taste of liberty, means from the freedom, from how the movement got when the revolt started, how the people joined the revolt, how they struggled to free the country. Those all stories are not waste, children. The people will remember them. The people will remember those people who have lost their lives for this purpose. So he says here, its fruit gradually acquires the bitter taste of liberty. It is a bitter taste. Kadwapan bolte हैं ना. It's a bitter taste of liberty. Today, we are remembering you. We cannot forget how you suffered a lot, how you lost your lives. This is all about the poem today, children. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. That's all for today's session. I request you to read the poem once and try to write the summary of the poem. Meet you in the next session. Thank you.